Hello, and welcome to Guest Within My Cup with three women who are very excited to come and have a conversation with you today. Some of you may be joining us for the first time, so we're going to take a second and introduce ourselves. We're going to start with Dej.
Hi, I'm Deja, also known as Deja the Therapist. I'm a licensed professional counselor out of Michigan. I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, and I wear many other hats as well. My primary focus pretty much is on women, focusing on adjustment, specifically young women transitioning into adulthood. So, hey, y'all, good to see y'all today.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Shelley. I'm a Michigan-based licensed psychologist. I primarily work with women who are navigating seasons of change, whether that's in motherhood, career, or self-discovery, and I help them become closer aligned with the woman that they are becoming. It's good to be here.
I am Jessica Ross, aka BKA. Let's watch that, right? Because we rocking crimson and crimson over this way. But also known as Dr. J. I am a Michigan-based licensed professional counselor, licensed in Louisiana, Maine, and Arizona as well. I primarily work with couples, helping them to rediscover or discover pleasure and joy for the first time around sexual exploration. And so that can look very different for different people, but it's something I absolutely enjoy talking about all things sex, pleasure, and exploration. So today, though, our conversation is not about any of the things that we primarily focus on. You are getting three perspectives from three different therapists with three different lenses. And today, our conversation is not only about our experience, but about our expertise combined. And we're talking about parenting the unexpected. As we do so, y'all know we like to sip on a little something. So, what are you ladies sipping on?
Um,
Well, today I am rocking my elephant mug and what's in here? Mint tea. So something
Mm.
warming, something soothing. Babies were up at 4 a.m. I don't understand why. There's potentially a stomach bug about to come, and so I'm mentally bracing
Oh,
myself for what's on the way.
mm-hmm. Ugh.
I
yeah,
know.
I am drinking Detroit's finest, a Verner this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I woke up, my chest was hurting a little bit, so I was like, you know what? This will knock it right out.
Medicine. Medicine.
That is the medicine of the Black Detroiter. Like it is what it
Mhm.
is. We're not gonna fight it. Like I just saw a post recently, like who decided that like take me back to the person who first was like, this is medication and it works for autism.
Collectively. Okay.
Like,
The ancestor
right.
said, and I see you.
Yes, team for the
Mhm.
culture. So I have my family mug today. It is oh my gosh, this takes me back about 9 years.
Oh,
9 years ago, I had this made and it says family and love and kisses and hugs. And it has pictures of my family when we were two and expecting a third.
mm.
And so I am sipping on just a nice, refreshing, like cucumber lemon water today. And just right sipping something that feels soothing, yes, for my stomach, but also like for the soul. It feels very cleansing,
Yeah.
right? For me. And so yeah. So jumping into this conversation, I've been thinking a lot about this concept of parenting the unexpected and what that was going to mean for our conversation and what we talked about today, and like what that was going to mean for the people that are listening. I know certainly that my cup has been very full with a lot of things related to parenting as, transition has been happening. Fall is the season of transitioning. Um, but I'm curious. We are all parents. We all have different experiences with our children. We have different number of children, different gender makeups of our children, different relationships as it relates to the parents of our children, right? And so I'm curious to know, like today, I guess I'll start off with, you know, what was it like when you all knew you were going to be a parent? Like what was that moment like for you?
Mm.
Fear. For me, it was fear. Because I think I had just started my graduate program
Mm,
like 1 month prior to me finding out I was pregnant. Um, and it was kind of just like, nope, I can't do this. Like I'm in school. I'm not about to nope. Like it was just like, how am I gonna be in school and have a baby and be a mother and do all these things? And it's not that I didn't have support. It was just like, I can't do that. Like that's I'm not doing that. Like it was automatic like that. So I would definitely say that was rooted in fear. And like my mom literally had to tell me, like, we are going to help you. Like,
mm,
relax. Like, you'll be okay. And I was okay, but definitely that was like my first thought. But then after that, I started getting excited and I was like, I hope I'm having a girl. I want a little mini me. So it worked
mm,
out. It worked out because I got exactly what I wanted. So
mhm,
I think for me, it was interesting because similarly, I ended up having my first son maybe like 6 months before I started my PhD program. But fun fact, he was planned. And so in my mind, if you know me to be a planner. I'm like, well, here's what makes the most amount of sense. I don't want to, like, this was my logic going into it. I didn't want to put either on hold for the other. I didn't want to put life
mm,
on hold for career. I didn't want to put career on hold for life. And so I said, we'll just do both. And so I was with his dad at the time, and he's older than I was. He had his own child already. And so there was this idea in my head of like, okay, if this is what's going to be the thing, let's go ahead and like hop to it. This makes the most sense. I was graduating in December from undergrad, and I didn't start grad school until August. And so from a timeline perspective, I'm like, great.
mm,
And then I learned some things about life. But that's where I started, right? Feeling very,
yeah,
this is going according to plan. And so I love that we're
mm,
actually doing Parenting the Unexpected because, again, what you think you know, especially at the tender age of 21, is
mm,
hilarious.
yeah. I was, oh gosh, probably about 20 or so.
Mhm.
And Kenzie's dad, or my daughter's dad, was significantly, he was older than me as well. Um, and it was not a planned pregnancy.
Mhm.
It wasn't a plan. It wasn't. A lot of things weren't planned. This wasn't even necessarily a um relationship per se. And fear. But I think fear for a different reason. Fear for me was like, how am I going to tell the people in my life who thought so highly of me that
Mhm.
I was pregnant, right? And that I was pregnant and not married, and that I was pregnant and not in sort of a serious long-term relationship. Like, how was I going to have that conversation when, tell you the truth, girl, these people didn't even know I was having sex. And so, let alone, it went from had no idea you were having sex to oh my God, you're having a baby. And
Mhm.
so, and I like that was the fear for me of like, how do I have this conversation? I was in the middle of undergrad, and so it was a very scary time. Like I knew I was going to finish, like none of that was a question for me, but it very much so was like, how do I tell my family who just would not have expected this particular thing, right? Like from me specifically. And to understand my family's background a little bit, like I'm the first to graduate college, the first to get a PhD. Like there's a lot of things that were, in my opinion, um, that are expected of you when you come into the world with this idea of being all the things that your family and your parents couldn't, right? Or
Yeah.
didn't, right? So yeah, so there was fear, but fear in a different way. And there was some excitement because I did have support that, showed up for me in a lot of ways. But I also had people who would make comments that were really hurtful, like, okay, this shouldn't be the way, this is going for you in life. I'm gonna push you down the stairs, or like just comments that were really hurtful. So the first part of parenting for me, like, like they just said for different reasons, was fear and then excitement.
Yeah.
hmm definitely.
Mm.
And Shelly, I think I do resonate with you about as far as like the planning thing, because that
Yeah.
I'm very like, okay, I'm about
Makes
to do this.
sense.
Like in my head, it was like if I do have a kid, I barely even want. I was like, I can be rich auntie, but if I do have a kid, it'd be when I'm 27. I've already graduated. I traveled for 3 years. I've done like it was like I had this whole like plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then here I am, 23. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what? Baby,
Mm-hmm.
what? I haven't even done anything yet. Like I haven't even lived. But yeah, then it did turn to excitement though. Like once you kind of like it
Yeah.
sinks in and you're like, okay, well, I can do this. I mean, I'm an adult, I have a job, I'm in school, I have my own place, I have a car, like I have the necessities I need, I have support. Like
Yeah.
I was in a relationship, so it's not like it was just like, just all over the place and dysfunctional. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can do this and let's get excited. Like so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you have these beginnings, and then part of what I think about is like, okay, so when do I become a parent? And I think part of like what we're identifying is like from conception, like the moment you recognize, at least from a maternal standpoint, like that you're caring, like it feels very much so like from that moment, you are in fact a mother.
Because from that moment, everything shifts a little bit, right? There are like medical appointments, there are vitamins, I need to actually hold my body differently. There are physical things that happen. I remember the first time around, and this will tell you just a little bit about me. I don't know, something about like spatial awareness is a little off for me.
Mm,
And so I remember like as my belly was growing, being able to like determine the distance between a space, whether I could
mm,
get into said space, even that was a thing. And so like when you're saying like it becomes the moment of conception when you realize, hey, I'm pregnant, it's because so much has to shift very early from a mother
mm,
standpoint
mhm.
Mhm.
because you're the one
Yeah,
carrying said baby.
it almost, and I'll shift from here, but like the moment of conception is like the moment of like being consumed. Like, and this is a different conversation, but it's the moment many of us find out we're pregnant or with child, it completely takes over your entire world because it shifts the way you do everything, right? Your doctors, the medicines you take, you become immediately responsible for the life. And I think it's hard because when we think about people who can't carry to term, people who carry and they have children who have um, developmental issues that while they're in utero, or they end up with neurodevelopment, issues or physical issues or disabilities after gestation, for many of us, it's like, well, what did we do? And what did I do wrong? Did I not take the vitamin on time? Did I not go to enough doctor's appointments? Did I eat the wrong things? Was it the stress? Was it talking about like so
Yeah.
much I think consumes you when you become a person with child?
And I think that rupture that you're talking about, the place where what you thought, and again, that doesn't even have to be so many expectations. It's the idea of that's how we build connection, right? We forecast to the future a lot of times. We think about what this life might possibly look like. And so that rupture between like what you thought and what reality, I think that's so often where a lot of that grief lives, a lot of that guilt lives, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of that self-blame lives because it's the what ifs, it's the could I haves, and like all of these questions, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so, I think as we dig into our conversation, like parenting the unexpected is really about this idea of you don't know what to expect or what you're going to experience. Some things are completely unpredictable, right? I think about let's just talk about neurodevelopmental disorders for a second. Like you give birth to a child, for some of us, you don't know what that experience is going to be like. There are some things that you give, birth to a child, they're going to test the hearing. They're going to test like there are some things, right, that they're going to test and they can tell you like this might be a concern. But for many things, it takes a while. It takes 6 months. It takes 9 months to, your kid is developing and you're like, something doesn't seem right, right? Like something seems off. Something seems different about my child than what I see in other people's children. I'm wondering if either one of you can speak to that.
Mm. I can, because like I'm in the process right now of going through like different evaluations and whatnot for the twins. And so I think like a couple things are popping up for me right now because I think as a parent, as a mother specifically, as me as a mother specifically,
Hmm.
worry is built in. Like worry predates my nervous system. I think it goes back to the nervous systems of my mother, the nervous system
Hmm.
of maybe even my grandmother, like the influence of um like social, like a lot of like experiences
Yeah.
that aren't just mine go into the nervous system that I show up in this world with. And so worry is not untypical for me. And so I know for myself, um, I have this way of like making sure like I'm looking. I'm always hyper vigilant in that way. And so navigating that balance for me has always been tricky. But with the twins specifically, there were a couple of things where I'm like, huh. And I've done enough research. I've been in the space enough when it comes to like understanding um, childhood development to be able to say like, okay, some things are feeling um, like they fit into a category that I've seen before. And because they're so young, it's also like, okay, well, we're going to wait and see. We're going to try these other things. And so sitting there and kind of being in the place of waiting, I think is interesting because there's a very real, very different experience from being curious or being like, I wonder to, hey, this is what's going on. And now we can, I told y'all I like a plan, right? Now we can
Hmm.
figure out how to best support what this looks like, what supports need to be in place, what accommodations might need to be set up to help like support whatever like their development needs to look like. And there's that space, like you said, where it's like you're just waiting to see what happens. And I think that might be my least favorite place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like you talk about grief. It's interesting. I have two children who are gifted or exceptional, and I mean all my children are gifted and exceptional, right? But I have two who, like from a IQ standpoint, right, and I have one who he's extremely smart, right? Like, but he falls into um, very sort of normal high intelligence, right? Like high average intelligence. And it's very different in terms of parenting. And two of the children are what you call like twice exceptional, meaning like they are high average or gifted and also have a neurodevelopmental disorder, if you will. And so, but they present extremely differently.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like grief. There's grief because like you want your kids to fit in. You want them to build friendships. You want them to make connections. You want people to, want to share space with them. And sometimes when your kids present differently, like their relationship building is different and the way people see them and want to connect with them is different. The judgment is different. And it's hard when a kid comes home and they're like, well, I don't think anybody likes me, or I really want friends. And you're like, you're great, you're awesome. Like, I wish people could see that in you.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's also, that fear that comes along with that. And then there's the lack of knowing. When my daughter was first born and we found out, like, okay, she's a very exceptional learner, it was, how do we navigate that? It was like, well, what do we do? We were, I was a single parent, and so I didn't have any money to put her in some special school, right, where she could get all this gifted education. And so it was really hard, like navigating that and feeling like I wasn't doing the best for her and having the best opportunities for her. So like there was a complication of that. And then, like I said, with my son, brilliant kid, and also like the navigation of the social emotional space can create challenges for him.
Yeah.
And so it's it's hard to say the least.
Yeah. I think too, like I had to get Imani tested like for speech and things like speech delays when she was like 2 or 3. I want to say she was like probably about to be 3 because they kept saying she was too young. Because that's been something for us. Like she has not been diagnosed with anything, but as a mom, I'm just like, why is her reading like that? Like, why does she do that? Like, why is it like I'm questioning and I don't know anything about anything, literally, when it comes to like, I mean, I know like child development, but it's kind of like the teachers are saying, oh, she's fine. Oh, she'll grow out of it. Oh, and I'm just like, but are you sure? Like, how do we know this? Like, what are the guidelines to prove that she'll grow out of this? Like,
Mhm.
why is she still writing backwards in first grade? Like, why is that normal? Like, but nobody like breaks it down. They're just like, oh, she's okay. And I'm just like, are you sure? Like, I guess for
Yeah.
me, it's kind of like that worry. It's like, and then no one, for me, I don't really know where to go to get the reassurance. Like, because if
Mhm.
y'all are not sure, what can I do at home? Like, can we run some, like, what do we need to do? Because I don't want her in these pivotal years of first, second, third grade to like not be able to read at her level or whatever, and then now she's struggling beyond, because these are the foundational years. Like it's a lot
Yep.
of things I think that's like me growing up. I remember like I was an all A student. I didn't have to go to tutoring. I didn't have to do these things. So like having a child who's
Mhm.
like she's smart but struggling, it's like, okay, do she need to be in a different school system? Like what is she, just like a slower learner? Is
Yeah.
it something with her speech? Like what is happening? But again, everybody like she's okay. And I'm just like,
But it like as you were talking, like I felt myself getting angry and frustrated because like I remember going through the process and the fight, and you don't get what you need a lot of times. And then they get to third grade and they're like, oh, well, if you can't do these things in third grade, where all these referrals are going to happen. And so it sucks because you have this pivotal moment. But in kindergarten, you're telling me not to worry about it. And in first grade, you're saying, no big deal, we'll do this. And in second grade, right? Like it gets to the point where as a parent, your concern quite often is dismissed because everybody knows better than you.
Yeah. And I think about the experience of being like Black mothers in this space. Like that's what was coming up for me as we talk, because I do, like, there's a part of my brain that's like, I do get that sometimes things do change. Like what happens in
Sure.
kindergarten may not look the same. But I think when I think about the like hypervigilance that kind of all of us have kind of talked about in this space, it brings up why for me. Well, why is it that we have to be? And it's because there are so many different experiences and outcomes. Again, in this attempt, Jessica, you were saying to protect our children, we're trying to figure out, well, how can I best support? Because there are so many then like systemic and institutional disadvantages that make it so that like I need to be on top of this, because if I'm not, then you get lost in it. And
Hmm.
that being something that a lot of us just aren't okay with. But then how do we navigate that space of like,
Hmm.
man?
Yeah.
And then understanding that sometimes it is just different. Because similar to what Deja was saying, like school came easily for me, and it
Hmm.
may not to my other children, right? And what does that mean in terms of like this idea of Black achievement and like what, like, there's so many things that are like popping up in my head right
yeah.
now.
Yeah. I mean, what stands out though is like the emotions that we're talking about to
Yeah,
me. Like when you're parenting, you don't know what's going to come of like you, let me say it this way. You can provide all the greatest things, the greatest education, the money, the housing. You can provide all of these wonderful things to your children, and there's no predicting the outcome, right? Because you don't know what's going on necessarily with their development in terms of you know, whether or not what you offer them is going to sustain throughout the years, right? Because what they can do, like you said, really well in kindergarten or first grade, they may struggle with in high school, right? Like, what might have been really easy for them at one point might be really difficult for them at another point, or vice versa, right? Like it might get easier for them. But like there's this anger and frustration about not being heard as
yeah,
parents and not being validated in our experiences with our children, and sometimes even being dismissed with what we think is
yeah,
important, right? And then the sneakiness of the system. And I say that because when I was trying to get support for my kids, I kept asking this school, and somebody finally said to me, "Oh, if you don't put it in writing, they won't move on it because putting it in writing puts them on a time clock." Right? But like if you're just verbally requesting it, there's no sort of proof or no paper trail that says like I requested a IEP review or a special education. Like there's nothing in there that says that, and so they're not on the clock. But once you submit that written documentation, it's like nope, you got a 30-day window to get him assessed and get a response, to me. And
Yeah.
so, that point, but then also like how they look at our Black children. My kid is in an all-white school system and or predominantly white school system. And there's this assumption of what he can or cannot do based on their implicit experiences and their bias. And like that also pisses me off, right? Like, anyway, I could go on, but my point was like there's an anger, there's a grief, there's a frustration, there's a feeling of like just being lost in the process and not always understanding. Like we understand child development, but we are not a part of the school system, right? Like we are not educators in that way.
Yeah. Mm. Mm.
So yeah, I just, and Dave, to your point, like I've been there of my youngest, he had speech articulation issues, which in my opinion was impacting his reading. And they're like, oh no, but it'll be fine. Like, he will grow out of it. He will grow up. It will get better. And I'm like, yeah. And like, is there not something we could also do to help it get better? Like, could we not also put in some support at the same time to
Yeah.
make sure it gets better so that, I mean, like literally people have told, or teachers and educators have told me within the system he was in, just wait till third grade. Like if it's not good by third grade, then we'll put in some interventions. And it's like that don't make no damn sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because third grade is like now they supposed to have like comprehension and able to form all these things and read these books, but
Their
it's not
expectation.
giving it's not giving them a chance. It's like, oh, wait for them to fail and then we'll figure everything out. But now they're playing catch up for the
Yeah.
rest of
Hmm.
elementary going into like it's
Yeah, yeah.
so
But, to go back to the point and like lean in on grief a little bit, I think it's very, when I think about the parents that I've interacted with, there's a lot of shame around the grief that they feel. And, I like to say like there's multiple types of grief that people may experience related to their children. I think about, autism diagnoses and ADHD diagnoses and selective mutism and, learning disabilities and dyslexia and like all these, you know,
Medical
different
complexities and
medical, yeah,
navigating
like,
those. Like,
yeah, yeah. And so I think about like the fact that grief is a very real part of that and what you're grieving sometimes people don't understand, but like you are grieving the moment that you're in because nobody gets pregnant or whether planned or not, and they think, oh, I can't wait to have this kid who, has all of these medical issues or all like we're not thinking that. You're hoping for a happy, healthy delivery, a happy, healthy birth, a happy, healthy child, whatever that happy, healthy looks like. Um, and so, like, the unexpected happens, and there's a grief about what I thought I was going to experience as a parent, what I thought my child was going to get to experience, what I think their future might be. Like, there's a lot of different pieces of grief in that.
yeah.
yeah. And I think a big part of that is the guilt you feel for grieving,
Yeah.
like for feeling away if you have this child. Because like again, you create this thing. Like I created this whole like I want to have a daughter and I want her to look like me and I want her to be this color and I want her to be this and I want her to be that. And it's like if I didn't get that, I don't know how I would like, it would have like, yes, thank God I had a healthy baby, right? Like, okay. But I think that we create these things. And then when you don't get them, it's a sense of like you feel kind of let down or you do feel away. But you can't really express that to the world because they're going to be like, well, just be happy you got a healthy baby. Well, that's your kid. You should love them unconditionally. It doesn't matter if you had a girl or a boy. It doesn't matter if they're this. You still love them. And it's like, yeah, we're going to still love them. But you created this whole like mental like fantasy almost in your head of like what you want your kid to be and you want them to be smart and grow up and be the next
Yeah.
president or whatever that looks like, right? And it's like, wait, but but your child is born in there, they can't hear or see, they can't walk, they can't speak. Like now it's like, okay, this doesn't fit what I thought. So now what do I do next?
Yeah. And you're not wrong for thinking or wanting or desiring. Like, let's put that out there, right?
Right.
Like having this vision of the future for a child you're carrying, a child you're that whatever that is, adopt, like it's normal. It's
Yeah.
normal to fantasize about what that experience is going to be like and how you're going to experience it. And so, like, we're not saying like don't do that. It's it's just understanding that expectations, for many of us can create disappointment, right? And sometimes that's really, really unavoidable. But like, and I know we're talking about like developmental and disabilities and those sort of things, but I think there's also something to be said for, parents who have kids who, are LGBTQIA or, kids who decide that they're polyamorous or whatever. Like, I think ideally, again, a lot of us, depending on what our experiences, are, there's just some things that we're not considering. I think now, okay, parents who have kids now are much more adept to consider like that their kid might, you know, uh, come out with different abilities or come out in terms of different, gender expectations or sexuality expectations. I think people are more aware of that stuff now. I think it's very different than when I had kids, in terms of like awareness and how you visualize your family, because there just weren't things that were talked about and they weren't things that were um, largely present. Right. Whereas now I think that's a huge part of people's information that they have access to and awareness to.
Mhm.
And I think like you're bringing up something that's interesting because as much as we can acknowledge the grief and the guilt or whatever might be coming up, I think then how we parent is also really important to then think about in consideration of how do those expectations impact who I'm parenting today. Because I've seen a lot of situations, like you talk to the kids then, right? And it's like those expectations have then been weights and like sat on the shoulders of those
Mhm.
children and they felt it throughout their own development. So I think about how a lot of times then without owning, understanding, and like processing the stuff that comes up with that, we intentionally or unintentionally like splatter that all over the child that we're,
Mm,
and
Mhm.
that can't be the thing either. It can't.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Acknowledging that like expectation that you had, like acknowledging it within yourself that like, okay, I, especially like maybe for a dad, like, oh, I had a son, right? This is my son. And then down the line, your son decides they want to be they're trans, right? Now they're in now your expectation for like you had this idea of this father son relationship and we're going to do this. You don't have that anymore. So now you're like upset with the child, but
Yeah.
really it's because your expectation is not met anymore. Or like now you have to grieve that. And I think for a lot of parents in those situations like need to be in therapy because they have to go through like that whole process of like their kid want a different name. They don't want to like you're literally for
Half
some
feeling.
parents, yeah, it's like a big difference. You're losing. Well, at least that's how they feel like they're losing their child. So it's so deep to like these things that like as parents we create these expectations or we just think that it's okay.
Yeah.
Like okay, this is my kid. I'm doing this, doing this. Um, but really quick, while you were talking, Shelly, I thought about something like I've done some work with this, worked with people with this, with dealing with your children having like mental disorders or like diagnosis of like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, and they're like, why did my child have to be like this? Like, why isn't my child neurotypical in that way? Like why do they have to be like this? And it's like that's deep in itself too, because now you have to parent different and get your child certain resources and things or therapy. And sometimes that can be like if they do have a diagnosis, it can be hard to help them if they're not
Hmm.
aware that they need help. So
Yeah. Well, and essentially, what you lost was a fantasy. What you lost was something that wasn't real in the first place. You didn't lose the child, right?
Mhm.
You lost the fantasy of what you thought the child was going to be. And I think to your point, there's a place where we have to understand, number one, carrying to term is not a given. And if you are, able to carry to term, having a healthy delivery is not a given. And if you have a healthy delivery or delivery, right, like having a child that doesn't have any concerns in their life is not a given. And so I'm not saying like go through life and pregnancy thinking like, okay, I'm going to expect the worst, but I am saying like maybe it's time to start putting ourselves in a position where we can be hopeful, we can be prayerful, we can, want the best, but also we have considerations of what happens if what I think might be true is not true. Like, how might I be accepting of whatever I'm blessed with or whatever I'm given the opportunity to parent? And I think that's a hard way to think, for people to begin to think about. But I also think like we're at a point where we have to start considering what we want is irrelevant in something that we don't have control over.
Yeah.
You have no control over a huge part of how your child develops. Like you can be the best parent, provide all the best things, like I said, and your child could still end up having troubles with depression or having troubles with, their gait or, issues related to hearing or vision or learning. Like there's no way to predict that quite often, right? Like
Yeah.
there are a lot of preventative things that we can do, but there are some things that are just unavoidable.
Yeah. And like I'm even hearing kind of this idea that when you think about parenting the unexpected, like we've talked a lot about like, okay, what's happened or what's going on in the environment, but so much of it also has to be about then who do we become in response?
Mm,
And I think that's on all angles of it because like as somebody who does a lot of identity work within my work, I know that like identity reorganization then becomes pivotal during this time, right? Because how is it that I can shift and shape how it is that I show up? Because we've talked a lot from a, medically or like functioning perspective, but I even think about like learning I had twins, unexpected,
Mm.
unexpected. And let me tell you, it's a very different experience
mhm.
because it's two like there's a mismatch in numbers like I'm
Yeah.
outnumbered. And so what does it look like to then realize with my son Ethan, I think what I learned very early with him is like, oh, I had to be a model for something I was never taught. Like I need
Mm,
to show him how to better regulate certain emotions because I was watching it come out in him really young without any of the like tools to be able to
mhm.
respond to it in like accordance with daycare rules and standards and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
those types of things. And so I learned that okay, I need to show you something, I need to model something. The twins made me realize something else because Ethan's father and I co-parented, and so there were times where I got to just be back in myself. I got to replenish, I got to refill, I got to
Mm,
do all of these things. Twins came about, so it's two, and then also they're with me constantly. And that's a different way of being that was then required for me. I couldn't just like do what I needed to do in the parenting realm and then refill it over here. I had to learn to regulate differently because now I've got two screaming babies crying at once while all of these other things are happening. Like that's,
mhm,
I twitch constantly. And
mhm,
learning how to show up differently in this unexpected realm, right? Because again, I was
mhm,
like, okay, I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And life said that was cute, but
mhm.
like, this is what you're dealing with now. And how
Yeah.
do you like navigate in that space alongside the grief?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to your point, like the concept of parenting the unexpected really means that you, whatever your vision for what came next in your life, right, as it relates to having kids, whether you were prepared or not, planned or not, like we are not, there are things that we just don't know to be prepared for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Having having two babies sounds real cute, right? It's cute, right? But the reality of what it means to even be in a marriage and have, two kids, or in a committed relationship and have a kid versus, like you said, where you're co-parenting in two different households and there is reprieve because your kid is gone for 2, 3, 4 days at a time
Yeah.
versus this idea where like, no, your kid home every day, all
It's so yeah,
day.
every day, all day. And like that brings up something to me too, because there's something about the chronicness of unexpected. Like to be in a space where you are chronically having to, like, especially if there's a lot of complexities that goes on.
Hmm.
Not Ethan had it too. So Loki, my boys have both had febrile seizures.
Mm.
Sweet. Oh my gosh. Like I feel so much empathy towards like mothers of parents who have like children with epilepsy, because
Yeah.
just in these little moments where they have fevers and that's what sparks the seizure, like the level of just chronic like worry, hypervigilance, I'm trying to make sure everything's fine. I think about what does it mean to be in that unexpected and for something to feel like very chronic, very ongoing, and the influence that that has on like your regulation, your patience, your capacity, like all of those things then get shifted.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like what support is like given or provided or
Yes.
taught around those types of things. They send you home with a baby and say, you know, peace and blessings. Best of luck to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Okay. So, as we get ready to wrap up, like there are so many things that came out of this conversation, and what I'm really hearing, right, from both of you, from all of us, is that walking into parenting from the moment we found out we were pregnant, whether it was planned or not, to like where we are today, that there have been a lot of unexpected things that have happened over time. And some of that is related to, ability or what's perceived as disability, but some of it is related to relational factors. Some of it, it's related to like just understanding who your children are as people and then adjusting on the fly, right? Like to what that looks like and how you engage with them. So, like, what is it that you all would want to offer to people who, are in a space where they're trying to parent the unexpected, whatever that might be? Like, what is it that you want to offer them to fill their cups?
The first word that kind of like just is in my head is support, but then it's like, what does that look like? And I really think that that is space to talk about these things, like how we're doing right now. Like nobody talks about it. Like it's like you feel bad about it. It's like you feel guilty. You feel like you're going to be judged. But these
Mhm.
are real feelings that's happening every day. I think so. People need space to talk about an outlet to talk about like what their expectation was and being honest and then able to say I'm angry because you might be angry about it and like work through that. So I don't know, like I know that's like cliche, like they need support, but I really think that people that are going through this need a place to just vent and get it out
Mhm.
because it's hard if you try to vent to the world about it or to other family members. A lot of times you're not always going to be met with the most empathetic responses. You're going to be met with like, well, that's still your child, well, oh well, or you get blamed, you're the reason why they like this, you should have been on no more, you should have been paying more, like all these, you shouldn't have had them in that school system. Like it's always something. So I think that
Yeah.
nobody plans for things to go unexpectedly, but they will. Like it's almost inevitable. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, echoing that, like parenting rarely, if ever, unfolds the way that we expect it to. And so allowing that to be like a given helps to create a little bit of space in between those expectations and whatever reality ends up looking like. And then I guess one thing I would leave with somebody who's listening to this right now is just letting you know that grief and gratitude can coexist together. Like loving your child deeply and fully as they are doesn't have to negate from the heart of whatever your daily experience looks like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I echo both of the sentiments that um both of you said, and part of, what I guess I'm spilling from my cup to theirs is that repair. Two things. Number one, that repair is possible. There are going to be ruptures when
Oh,
you have expectations, when have a way that you believe things should go. Like there are going to be ruptures, right, between you and your child, and so repair is possible. Let's not leave things lingering. Get to a place where you can take accountability for what your personal experience was and where you can allow, your child to be heard and where you can find a place where it's appropriate for you to be heard, right? I think there's a level of uh, ownership that has to happen with what your experience is, and a space where you know not to weaponize that. I think we are so frustrated sometimes that we weaponize our emotional experience and we sort of metaphorically whip our kids with it, right? Like you're angry at them because they don't, they can't regulate an emotion immediately, or you're frustrated at them because they're getting the poor grades in school, or you're mad at them because they chose to love somebody of the same gender, or because they chose to be trans. Like, and you're weaponizing your feelings and you're creating distance and harm. And I think there's space for you to deal with what's coming up for you because your emotions matter. Like it's not that they don't, but it's not meant to be poured into the person, right, that has made a choice for their life, right, or has unfortunately had the choice for their life put on them. Um, so it's make space to go and seek help and support with somebody who can openly be there for you without bias. And, sometimes that's going to be a therapist. Sometimes that's going to be a pastor, preacher, or friend. Um, but today's just point, like it may not be your sister, cousin, auntie, baby mama, like though that might not be the person you could go to. And the damn sure isn't the person who's having the experience because they have their own
yeah.
grief and pain and anger and frustration and excitement and love and joy and gratitude to hold. It is not their job to hold that for you too, right? Like,
Mhm.
so take ownership over what you feel and seek support for that. Um, yeah, so I think, yeah, so that's what I think. I think we can all say from what we talked about that parenting is unexpected. I think that's the point we made today, that parenting in and of itself is
Even when you
unexpected.
have the plan, right?
Yeah,
Even when,
it's unpredictable.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So hopefully, hopefully this was helpful. I think it was helpful for me to have the conversation because it's not something I get to talk about with a lot of people. Um, and, people don't want to share their experiences because they don't want to feel judged. And I think it was really good to be able to talk to you all and not feel like judged, based on what was
Yeah.
brought up or, what my thoughts were.
What it brings up for me is just this idea of, I think, motherhood, like parenthood, but really motherhood, um, gets so much judgment. I think we can look online and we can see just how often there's so many opinions from mothers to other mothers. Uh, that's hard. And so if we can create a space where we can understand that we may not understand anyone's full experience and that we can also hold competing feelings at the same time, I think we give people space to not have to hold all of that in, to
Hmm.
actually be able to release it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, all right. We are closing out with parenting the unexpected. Hopefully, you took something from this conversation today. Drop us a like, a comment. Let us know what you were sipping on while you were watching us. And let us know, like, what has been unexpected in your parenting experience? And what would you like to hear more of? How can we be helpful, and support you as you just move forward in life? Peace and love.